Hey, now and again people ask me to talk about older games and 2D games, so I was thinking about games I used to play as a kid and whether any of their levels stood out to me, and there was one that sprung to mind immediately.
Streets of Rage, the fighting game that'll knock your socks off.
Yep, Streets of Rage was awesome. The second game's the best one, but the level I want to talk about is the final level of the first game. The thing about this level is that it's quite an interesting example of level design stuff that I talk about a lot today. Things like environmental storytelling and the idea of holistic level design, where gameplay and story and presentation are all working together to create something greater and cooler than the sum of its parts. And I think this is interesting because I don't think most people are expecting this from one of those old school beat 'em ups where you basically save the world by repeatedly punching everyone in the face. But this final level always stood out as really epic to me, so let me explain why, starting with the gameplay. One of the key things about this level is that because it's the final one in the game, they're really throwing everything they've got at you. They make you fight all 5 of the boss characters that we've seen in the previous levels one more time. Those 5 bosses were these tall boomerang guys from the first level, the freaky blonde guys with claws from level 2, these funny Ultimate Warrior dudes who you meet down by the beach, these fire-breathing chunky boys introduced on the 4th level, and finally these 2 sneakily reskinned versions of the Blaze Fielding character who you fight on the boat in level 5. Now on one hand, reusing all the boss characters in the final level like this is quite a common thing to do in this type of game. It makes total sense to squeeze more gameplay out of these special characters instead of only using them once. And it also presents the player with a bigger challenge that feels slightly new and different, because you're doing them all back to back in the same level. Another more narrative thing about fighting all the bosses again is that it makes this level feel kind of symbolic of the journey that you're on, and the entire game that you've played to get here. And this brings me to the environment art, and specifically those windows that you see in the middle of the screen right now. The really simple but nice little thing they do with those windows is that as you progress through the level, that view outside of the city at nighttime slowly transitions to morning. I remember this feeling dramatic because it makes you feel like you've been fighting all night to get here, which matches how you feel playing the game because by this point you've been punching people in the face for about an hour non-stop. But on top of feeling just kind of cool and dramatic, I would also say there's a kind of metaphorical layer to it too, because every level in this game takes place at nighttime, and the whole premise of the game is that there's a kind of darkness that's descended over the city, and you're kind of stepping in and fighting to restore the light. So everything about this level, from the gameplay and fighting for all the bosses again, to the windows showing us the sun rising across the city that we're fighting to save, all of these decisions come together to help this feel like a dramatic finale to the game. So we beat this boss for the last time and we finally reach the end of the level. What do we see? A huge vista of the city, and the only thing between us and that city is Mr. X, who of course is the ultimate bad guy and the biggest douche in the world, so he's brought a machine gun to a fist fight. What a dick. But you get the idea. I think there's a lot more going on here than just nostalgia for these old games, and I guarantee that if you boot this game up now and you play through this final level, it still feels cool and dramatic like it did back in the day. It's probably one of my favourite final levels of any game I can think of, and I think it's a testament to how, no matter what game you're making, there are always creative choices you can make to elevate your work. You know, especially if you're making a game where you save the world by kicking the absolute shit out of everyone.